Alright, kitty, I gotta make a video. I'll see you later. Okay, bye-bye. Alright, kids. So today what we're going to be doing is starting with our identification of muscles. So we are going to do several of these videos together where I'm going to go through and describe all of the different muscles that you guys are going to be responsible for this unit. Okay, so I'm going to go through this PowerPoint, talk about a couple things so that you guys and I are all on the same page so that you guys know what to expect in the coming weeks. Okay, so some things to note when it comes to studying muscles. First, when I go through all of this information, again, you'll need your table. So this table that I gave you that described all of the origins, insertions, actions, and left a space for notes for these different muscles, you need to have that out with you and check that. So part of your assignment was to go through and answer and fill in the origins, insertions, and actions for the muscles of the head and neck and the muscles of the chest. Those are the ones that I'm going to go through today. So there will be one video, this one, that I'll talk about for head and neck muscles, and then a separate video for muscles of the chest. And I'll do that for each of the different parts of the muscular system so that we all have the same information. Okay. So as I go through these different things, some things to know. I'm going to highlight the parts that are important. So as you guys were going through this, you noticed that there were several things that had multiple origins, insertions, multiple actions. I'm going to say what you need to know. So when it comes to these different things, as I start, you guys should pay attention. Okay. So again, there are going to be several videos I'm going to do to help guide you through this stuff so that you have this resource, you have my explanation so that you know what you need to know. So just to tell you this again, all right, you're responsible for this information. This is the stuff that's going to be on your tests and practicals. Okay. So with this, keep in mind that the dissections we're doing are tools to assist you with this information. Studying this table, the table that you are given, is the most important thing when it comes to these muscles. It is blunt memorization. It is a lot of things that you have to memorize. Okay, so I'm telling you up front, you have to put in the time and effort. Okay, dissections, they're only there to assist you, and they're there to help reinforce the information. So doing a dissection isn't going to help you if you don't take the time and energy outside of class to study these muscles, okay? So keep that in mind. The CAT is a tool to help you study, so come in and use it like a tool, all right? It is one in your mini repertoire, okay? So you've got the table, you're going to have your flashcards you're going to make, you have these videos, you have your textbook, you have all of these resources that I expect you guys to be using, okay? So you have to take the time and energy to study these things. Okay. All right, so make flashcards. I can't tell you enough how important this is. So I will show you my set of flashcards that I made for all of this stuff, so you can use them as a guide to help you as you go through this study. So again, you have to make flashcards. All right. So I'm going to start with the muscles. All right, we're going to begin with the head and neck. All right, and that's where this video will end, and then I will make a separate video for the muscles of the chest. Those muscles, all right, these are the two sets that are going to be on your first practical. Okay. So muscles of the head and neck. Okay, the muscles that we're going to be doing and talking about over the head and neck are just kind of the major muscles, the muscles that we are looking at and you guys are learning on the human. These are the ones that you're able to see on the cat. So a lot of the muscles that we do and we look at are muscles that I know that you'll be able to find relatively easily on the cat. Okay, so that you can use that tool to your full advantage. That being said, the images and things that I'm going to show you are on humans, right? Again, this is human anatomy. We got to know where these muscles are on a human as well, okay? So let's start with the first one. The first muscle that we're going to talk about is it's called the masseter. So have you guys heard of the term masticate, right? The masseter is a muscle that is used for chewing, okay? So its main job is your chewing muscle. So here you've got the origin, the insertion, and the action. So the origin for your masseter is the zygomatic arch. So if you remember on your skull, the zygomatic arch is here. Your masseter starts here. So with origin, remember the origin usually doesn't move. Okay, the origin stays put. It's the insertion part of the muscle that is going to move. So wherever the muscle inserts, that's usually where the action is going to occur. So with your masseter, its insertion point is going to be on the lateral surface of the mandible. So if you look here, it's down here on this lateral side. Okay, so it comes down side of your face down to this lower part of your jaw. Okay, so masseter. So with the masseter, Lateral surface of the mandible, that is what you need to know, and you need to know its action. It only has one, and its main action is to elevate the mandible. So when I talk about origin, insertion, action, those are the three things that you need to know for that muscle. Okay, so masseter, side of your face. So when you looked at the cat and you were dissecting the cat, that big chunk of muscle on the side of its face, that was the masseter. All right, the next muscle is the digastric. So in cats, it's a lot bigger than it is in humans. When we do the cat dissection, you'll see that. But the digastric is very important because its main job is to help with chewing as well as speaking. All right, it also assists with breathing. So the digastric is below your chin. Okay, its origin point is on the masseter region of the temporal bone and the inferior surface of the mandible. So what it's going to do is it's going to come from the underside of your neck. Okay, so the mastoid region of your temporal bone, remember the mastoid process on the underside of the skull, all right, that's going to come down and it's going to insert on the hyoid bone. So the hyoid bone was a bone that we didn't directly identify. Some of you asked me about it, but it's a bone that's called a floating bone. So essentially it's not attached to any other bones. It doesn't articulate with any other bones, and it just floats underneath your chin. So if you press up into your jaw, you can feel it. All right, when we do the cat dissection, you'll be able to see it as well. So its origin point, again, you need to know that it's the mastoid region of the temporal bone and the inferior surface of the mandible. All right, so it's got those two, and its insertion is the hyoid bone. Okay, so one thing to know on your practical, right? When I say there's more than one origin and action there's more than one insertion point or more than one action, you need to identify at least one of these on your test. So if I ask you for the digastric and the origin, you can say mastoid region of the temporal bone, and that will get you the points. Okay, so I have you study both of these because you never know which one's going to pop in your head when you do this practical. Okay, and some people remember things better than others. So for your flashcards, make all of this. Its insertion point is easy and inserts on the hyoid bone. So you can see that right here where it's inserting. Okay, so you've got two different parts of the digastric coming down, and they insert into the hyoid. All right, and its last thing, its action, is it depressing the mandible or elevating the larynx. So it does both of these. So in your book it says and or. Okay, so it helps depress the mandible, so it helps your jaw lower, and it also elevates the larynx. And the larynx we haven't talked about, but it's part of the respiratory system, so it helps open up your airways. All right, this next one, the mylohyoid. So in humans, it's kind of the sheet of muscle that goes underneath the mandible. Its main origin is on the medial surface of the mandible. That is what you'll need to describe for me. Insertion, median connective tissue band that runs to the hyoid. So if you look in this image, okay, in this image you can see this band of connective tissue that runs here in the center. This is the insertion point. Okay, and what the mylohyoid does is it helps elevate the roof of the mouth, or floor of the mouth, sorry, and the hyoid bone, and it also can function in depression. Okay, so by pulling on it or pushing on this muscle, you can open and close your jaw. Okay, so that's what its main purpose is. So it's the medial surface of the mandible, so it's going to be closer to the midline. So again, the midline of the body is going to be here in the center. Okay, so that is what's going on there. Okay. All right, next muscles. Okay, these muscles are important when it comes to depressing and moving the larynx as well as moving your neck. Okay, so the first one is the sternohyoid. So the nice thing about these muscles is that their origin and insertions are described in their name. Okay, so when we say sternohyoid, the sterno part, right, the sterno part refers to the sternum. All right, sternum part to the sternum. All right, the origin point, so that's the clavicle and sternum, and the insertion is going to be the hyoid bone. Okay, so sterno here, hyoid is the insertion. So clavicle and sternum, that's the origin, insertion is on the hyoid. Okay, so it's going to only run from this part here, origin, all right, so sternum, part of the clavicle, all right, a little bit here, all right, and then it's going to insert up here in, or on the hyoid bone. So again, under your jaw, you can see it here. Okay. The other action the action that it does is it depresses the hyoid bone and larynx. All right, so it helps bring it down when you guys are speaking. All right. So next one, sternothyroid. So again, the name helps describe its origin, insertion. All right, so it's going to originate, right, the part again that doesn't move, on the dorsal surface of the sternum. All right, and it's also going to join to the first rib. So if you look here, Right, you can see this the dorsal part, so the front part of the sternum, and it also goes underneath here a little bit and attaches to the rib. So it goes underneath that part of the muscle. Okay. All right, the other part, all right, so insertion is on the thyroid cartilage of the larynx. So here's our larynx right here, okay? When we say the thyroid part is that above that point right there, okay, there is actually an organ, all right, that's right here. This is your thyroid. And your thyroid is responsible for a lot of hormones. It produces a lot of hormones. It regulates many of your body systems. So it's a very important organ, but it can also backfire and cause damage if there's a problem. But your thyroid is an extremely important regulatory organ. So its main action is to depress the hyoid bone and the larynx. So you can say depresses hyoid bone, or you could say depresses the larynx. Okay, so sternothyroid again is a muscle where it's your sternum to your thyroid. Okay, those are the big things about these names. They often help describe where the muscle begins and ends. Okay, the last muscle for the neck that you guys need to know is the sternocleidomastoid. So the sternocleidomastoid in humans is actually a pretty big muscle, right? And if you take your neck and you press down here closer to your collarbone, I guess you can't really see, but from your collarbone you push here, right? If you feel this muscle right here, especially if you turn your head really far, you can actually feel that sternocleidomastoid. So in humans, we call it the sternocleidomastoid because it has two origin points on the sternum and the clavicle, and it attaches to the mastoid region of the skull. Okay, so its insertion is here. So sternum and clavicle, so along the superior margin, so at this top part on the sternum and the clavicle, and its insertion is on the mastoid process of the skull. So it's going onto the back of your skull. Right? If you pull your head all the way to the side, you can feel that muscle right there. It's pretty superficial. Right? So it's close to the top. All right, so with this guy, if you look here, its action is a little bit complex. Okay, so it's a muscle that has one on each side. So you have a sternocleidomastoid on the left, you have one on the right. Okay, when you describe this, if you act them both at the same time and they both carry out some kind of action, what it's going to do is it's going to flex your neck. Okay, so if you contract that muscle, you're flexing your neck. If one of them moves, then what you're going to do is you're going to turn your head. Okay, so if one of these muscles acts, so the one that's on this side that you can't see, if I'm contracting this muscle, my head is going to turn towards that contracted muscle. So it's going to go to the other side. Okay, so it's going to switch. All right, so the main job of this guy is to help move your head laterally. So you can move it left or right. Okay, so those are the muscles of the head and neck. Okay, in the next video, I'm going to go through and describe the muscles of the chest. Okay? So if you have questions, I would suggest refer back to this video. If there's something you missed, if there's something you need to have clarified, write it down so that those questions are available to me when I get back so I can answer anything that you guys have. Okay, so those are the muscles of the head and neck. All right, so you guys have a good rest of your day. Make sure you watch the second video and that you have that information recorded and double checked. Okay.